Making faces makes it easier to figure out which is the new video versus the old one. So, Chapter 13. When Letty arrived, the real Letty this time, she was carrying a bucket of water. It must have been heavy, judging from the way she carried it. She stepped over where the edge of the ring in the grass must have been, and she came straight to me. "Sorry," she said. "That took a lot longer than I expected. I didn't want to cooperate neither, and in the end it took me and Gran to do it. She did most of the heavy lifting. I wasn't going to argue with her, but it didn't help, and it wasn't easy." "What?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" She put the metal bucket down on the grass beside me without spilling a drop. "The ocean," she said. "It didn't want to go. It gave Gran such a struggle that she said she was going to have to go and have to lie down afterwards. But she still got it into the bucket in the end." The water in the bucket was glowing, emitting a greenish-blue light. I could see Letty's face by it, and I could see the waves and ripples on the surface of the water, watch them crest and splash against the side of the bucket. "I don't understand." "I couldn't get you to the ocean," she said, "but there was nothing stopping me bringing the ocean to you." I said, "I'm hungry, Letty, and I don't like this. Mum's made dinner, but you're going to have to stay hungry for a little bit longer. Were you scared up here on your own?" "Yes." "Did they try and get you out of the circle?" "Yes." She took my hands in hers and then squeezed them. "But you stayed where you were meant to be, and you didn't listen to them. Well done. That's quality, that is." And she sounded proud. In that moment, I forgot my hunger, and I forgot my fear. "What do I do now?" "Now," she said, "you step into the bucket. You don't have to take your shoes off or anything. Just step in." I did not even seem to a strange request. She let go of one of my hands and kept hold of the other, and I thought, I will never let go of your hand, not unless you tell me to. I put one foot into the gleaming water of the bucket, raising the water level almost to the edge. My foot rested on the tin floor of the bucket. The water was cool on my foot, not cold. I put the other foot into the water and went down with it, down like a marble statue, and the waves of Letty Hempstock's ocean closed over my head. I felt the same shock you would feel if you stepped backwards without looking and had fallen into a swimming pool. I closed my eyes at the water's sting and kept them tightly shut, so tightly. I couldn't swim. I didn't know where I was, what was happening, but even under the water I could feel that Letty was still holding my hand, was holding my breath. I held it until I could hold it no longer, and then I let the air out in a bubbling rush and gulped a breath in, expecting to choke, to sputter, to die. I didn't choke. I felt the coldness of the water, if it was water, pour into my nose and my throat, and felt it fill my lungs, but that was all it did. It didn't hurt me. I thought, this is the kind of water you can breathe, I thought. Perhaps there is just a secret breathing to water, something simple that everyone could do if only they knew. That was what I thought. That was the first thing I thought. The second thing I thought was that I knew everything. Letty Hempstock's ocean flowed inside me, and it filled the entire universe, from egg to rose. I knew that. I knew what egg was, where the universe began, to the sound of uncreated voices singing in the void, and I knew where rose was, the peculiar crinkling of space on space in dimensions that fold like origami and blossoms like strange orchids, which would mark the last good time before the eventual end of everything and the next big bang, which would be, I knew now, nothing of the kind. I knew that old Miss Hempstock would be here for that one, as she had been for the last. I saw the world I had walked since my birth and understood how fragile it was, that the weary reality I knew was a thin layer of icing on a great dark birthday cake writhing with grubs and nightmares and hunger. I saw the world from above and below. I saw that there were patterns and gates and paths beyond the real. I saw all these things and understood them, and they filled me just as the waters of the ocean filled me. Everything whispered inside me. Everything spoke to everything, and I knew it all. I opened my eyes, curious to learn what I would see in the world outside of me, if it would be anything like the world inside. I was hanging deep beneath the water. I looked down, and the blue world below me receded into darkness, and I looked up, and the world above me did the same. Nothing was pulling me down deeper. Nothing was forcing me towards the surface. I turned my head a little to look at her because she was still holding my hand. She had never let go of my hand, and I saw Letty Hempstock. At first, I didn't know. What to think? I knew what I was looking at. I could make no sense of it. Where Ursula Monkton had been made of grey cloth that flapped and snapped and gusted in the storm winds, Letty Hempstock was made of silken sheets the color of ice, filled with tiny flickering candle flames, 100 candle flames. Could there be candle flames burning under water? There could. I knew that. When I was in the ocean, and even knew how, I understood it just as I understood dark matter, the material of the universe that makes everything that must be but we cannot find. I found myself thinking of an ocean running beneath the whole universe, like the dark sea water that laps beneath the wooden boards of an old pier, an ocean that stretches for forever and is still small enough to fit inside a bucket, if you have old Miss Hempstock to help you get it in there, and you ask nicely. Letty Hempstock looked like pale silk and candle flame. I wondered how I looked to her in that place, and I knew that even in the place there was nothing but knowledge. That was the one thing I couldn't know, that if I looked inward I would see only infinite mirrors staring into myself for eternity. The silk filled with candle flames and moved, then, a slow, graceful, under-the-water sort of movement. The current pulled at it, and now it had arms and hands that would never let go of mine, and a body and a freckled face that was familiar, and it opened its mouth, and, in Letty Hempstock's voice, said, "I'm really sorry." What for? She didn't reply. The currents of the ocean pulled at my hair and my clothes like summer breezes. I was no longer cold, and I knew everything, and I wasn't hungry, and the whole big, complicated world was simple and graspable and easy to unlock. And I would stay here for the rest of time in the ocean, which was the universe, which was the soul, which was all that mattered. I would stay here forever. "You can't," said Letty. "It would destroy you." I opened my mouth to tell her that nothing could kill me, not now, but she said, "Not kill you, destroy you, dissolve you. You wouldn't die in here, nothing ever dies in here. But if you stayed here for too long, after a while, just a little of you would exist everywhere, all spread out. And that's not a good thing. Never enough of you all together in one place, so there wouldn't be anything left that would think of itself as an I. No point of view any longer, because you'd be an infinite sequence of views and of points." I was going to argue with her. She was wrong. She had to be. I loved that place, that state, that feeling, and I was never going to leave it. And then my hand broke water, and I blinked and coughed, and I was standing thigh-deep in the pond at the back of Hempstock's farm, and Letty Hempstock was standing beside me, holding my hand. I coughed again, and it felt like the water fled my nose and my throat and my lungs, and I pulled clean air into my chest in the light of the huge, full harvest moon that shone on Hempstock's red-tile roof. And for one final perfect moment I still knew everything. I remembered that I knew how to make it so that the moon would be full when you needed it to be, and shining just on the back of the house every night. I knew everything, but Letty Hempstock was pulling me up and out of the pond. I was still wearing the strange old-fashioned clothes I had been given this morning, and as I stepped out of the pond up into the grass that edged it, I discovered that my clothes and my skin were now perfectly dry. The ocean was back in the pond, and the only knowledge I was left with, as if I had woken from a dream on a summer's day, was that it had not been long ago since I had known everything. I looked at Letty in the moonlight. "Is that how it is for you?" I asked. "Is what how it is for me? Do you still know everything all the time?" She shook her head. She didn't smile. She said, "Be boring, knowing everything. You'd have to give all that stuff up if you're going to muck about here." "So you used to know everything?" She wrinkled her nose. "Everybody did, I told you. It's nothing special, knowing how things work. You really do have to give it all up if you want to play." "Play what?" "This," she said. And she waved at the house and the sky and the impossible full moon and the skeins and shawls and clusters of bright stars. I wished I knew what she meant. It was as if she was talking about a dream she had shared. For a moment it was so clean in my mind that I could almost touch it. "You must be hungry," said Letty. And the moment was broken, and yes, I was so hungry. And the hunger took my head and swallowed my lingering dreams. There was a plate waiting for me in my place at the table in the farmhouse huge kitchen. On it was a portion of shepherd's pie, the mashed potatoes and crusty brown on the top, minced meat and vegetables and gravy beneath it. I was scared of eating food outside my home, scared that I might want to leave food I didn't like and be told off, or be forced to sit and swallow it in minuscule portions until it was gone, as I was at school, but the food at Hempstock's was always perfect. It didn't scare me. Jenny Hempstock was there, bustling about in her apron, rounded and welcomed. I ate without talking, head down, shoveling the welcome food into my mouth. The woman and the girl spoke in low, urgent tones. "Be here soon enough," said Letty. "They aren't stupid, and they won't leave until they've taken the last bit of what they came here for." Her mother sniffed. Her red cheeks were flushed from the heat of the kitchen fire. "Stuff and nonsense. They're all mouth, they are." I had never heard that expression before, and I thought she was telling us that the creatures were just mouths and nothing more. It didn't seem unlikely that the shadows were indeed all mouths, and I had seen them devour the grey thing that had called itself Ursula Monkton. My grandmother would tell me off for eating like a wild animal. "You mustn't eat and eat," she would say, "like a person, not a shaz or a pig. When animals eat, they fresh. People eat like a person." Parisian. That was how the Hunger Birds had taken Ursula Monkton, and it was also, I had no doubt, how they would consume me. "I've never seen so many of them," said Letty. "When they came in here in the old days, it was only a handful." Jenny poured me a glass of water. "That's your own fault," she told Letty. "You put up signals and called them. Like banging a dinner bell you were. Not surprising they all came." "I just wanted to make sure that she left," said Letty. "Please," said Jenny, and she shook her head. "They ain't like chickens who get out of the hen house and are so proud of themselves and so puffed up for being able to eat all the worms and beetles and caterpillars they want that they never think about foxes." She stirred the custard cooking on the cob with a long wooden spoon and huge irritated movements. "Anyway, now we've got foxes, and we'll send them all home, same as we did the last times they were sniffing around. We did it before, didn't we?" "Not really," said Letty. "Either we sent the flea home and the varmints had nothing to hang around for, like the flea in the cellar in Cromwell's time, or the varmints came and took what they came for and then they went away, like the fat flea who made people's dreams come true in Red Rufus's day. They took him and they upped and left. We've never had to get rid of them before." Her mother shrugged. "It's all the same thing. We'll just send them back where they came from." "Where do they come from?" asked Letty. I had slowed down now and was making the final fragments of my shepherd's pie last as long as I could, pushing them around the plate slowly with my fork. "That doesn't matter," said Jenny. "They all go back eventually. Probably just get bored of waiting." "I tried pushing them around," said Letty Hempstock matter-of-factly. "Couldn't get any traction. I held them with a dome of protection, but that wouldn't have lasted much longer. We're good here, obviously. Nothing's going to come to the farm without our say-so." "In or out," said Jenny. She removed my empty plate, replaced it with a bowl containing a steaming slice of spotted dick, and thick yellow custard trickled all over it. I ate it with joy. I do not miss childhood, but I miss the way I took pleasure in small things. Even as greater things crumbled, I could not control the world I was in. I couldn't walk away from things or people or moments that hurt, but I could find joy in the things that made me happy. The custard was sweet and creamy in my mouth, and the dark, swollen currants in the spotted dick were tangy in the cake-thick, chewy blandness of pudding. And perhaps I was going to die that night, and perhaps I would never go home again. But it was a good dinner, and I had faith in Letty Hempstock. The world outside the kitchen was still waiting. The Hempstock's fog-colored house cat, I don't believe I ever knew her name, padded through the kitchen, and that reminded me. "Mrs. Hempstock, is the kitten still there? The black one with the white ear?" "Not tonight," said Jenny Hempstock. "She's out and about. She was asleep in the chair in the hall all afternoon." I wished I could stroke her soft fur. I wanted, I realized, to say goodbye. I suppose. If I do have to die tonight," I started halteringly, not sure what I was going. I was going to ask for something, I imagined, for them to say goodbye to my mummy and daddy, or to tell my sister that it wasn't fair that nothing bad ever happened to her, that her life was charmed and safe and protected, while I was forever stumbling into disaster. But nothing seemed right, and I was relieved when Jenny interrupted me. "Nobody is going to die tonight," said Jenny Hempstock firmly. She took my empty bowl and washed it out in the sink, and then she dried her hands on her apron. She took the apron off, went out into the hallway, and returned a few moments later wearing a plain brown coat and a pair of dark green Wellington boots. Letty seemed less confident than Jenny. But Letty, with all her age and wisdom, was a girl, while Jenny was an adult, and her confidence reassured me. I had faith in them both. "Where's old Mrs. Hempstock?" I asked. "Having a lie down. She's not as young as she used to be." "How old is she?" I asked, not expecting to get an answer. Jenny just smiled, and Letty shrugged. I held Letty's hand as we left the farmhouse, promising myself that this time I would not let go.